Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hi, and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Cindy Murray, and I am here today with my co-hosts, Kristen Hessler and Amber Garvin.
Hello.
Hello.
And if this is, if you're coming back to us from having listened before, we like to welcome you back. We love having you come back and join us again over and over again because we talk about something different every week. And if this is your first time coming to the Modern Musings podcast, then we'd like to welcome you, and we hope you'll stick around and listen to the whole episode, and then give us a like and a subscribe, and give us some comments about what you heard. We would love to hear what you liked, what you didn't like, and so on and so forth. We come to you every week on Wednesdays with new episodes, and this week we are, since we're into September, we're kind of starting to think about the holidays a little bit. I know it's a little early, but if you've listened to any of our earlier podcasts, if you know us, you know that we start talking about the holidays way early. And we're kind of talking about some of our gifts and things that we like to do, and in particular sewing crafts. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Earlier this year, Amber, I think it was this year, wasn't it? That Amber...
It was around Christmas.
Or maybe it was around Christmas.
Yeah. One of the last season too.
Amber, I will find that episode and link it. But Amber had challenged us to make some homemade gifts for this year. And Chris and I have been busy little bees working on some things this year. And in between making things for Amber's wedding, which is coming up in December. So, so we're enjoying the craftiness.
Sewing craft. We have a sewing craft for the wedding, that table cover thing.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna do. Yeah.
That's going to be one too. Yep, it will. So, so we're talking sewing crafts. And one of the things I specifically wanted to talk about was quilting and T-shirt quilts, because T-shirt quilts are a really popular gift for people, especially like college students, high school students who are, graduating or whatever. And families like to take all of their sports T-shirts or their band T-shirts or what have you, and have quilts made out of them. And they're a lot of fun. And so I kind of wanted to talk about those a little bit, or I was prompted to talk about those. I mentioned in the last podcast, I don't know how we came up with this about quilting in particular as a podcast topic, because it's kind of a visual art. Well, it is a visual art, it is a visual art. But
y'all quilt. I
do quilt. I've done a lot of quilts, and I say a lot of quilts. I've done quite a few T-shirt quilts, and people ask a lot about T-shirt quilts, and I think that's probably how we got onto this. Was maybe I want to not dissuade people from doing them. I actually would like to encourage people to do them. Do your own if you sew at all. They're not that hard. They are challenging, but not hard, if that makes any sense. If you know what you're doing, and they can be done. If you want to pay someone to do it, it's going to cost you a lot of money, because you could not pay me to make one for you. That's how challenging they are. So, I often tell people when they ask me, my answer to them is, I will teach you how to make one. I might even teach you how to make one for free. Like for free, I will teach you how to make one. But I will not do that work for you, because it is challenging. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that the fabric is so stretchy and it has to be stabilized. And I've gone into some more detail about that, like a how-to on my blog. Mm-hmm. So that's a good place to look if you are wanting to do one. I've got like a step-by-step on my blog, and I kind of walk you through how to do one, what kind of stabilizer to buy, what kind of sewing techniques you want to do, and some easy ways to make one that's okay for a somewhat beginner quilter. Now, if you've never sewn anything in your whole life, I'm going to tell you, don't start with a t-shirt quilt, because it is challenging. You're sewing through multiple thicknesses of fabric. It's stretchy. It's a challenge. So, but if you already know how to sew, maybe you've done some other quilts, but you haven't done a t-shirt quilt, or maybe you've sewed clothes before, then go look at my blog, and I'll link that on the Heard It on the podcast, which you can get to by going to modernmusings.net, and those things are there, and I have a step-by-step guide how to do it. So I do love giving t-shirt quilts. I've done several of them. I've made them for my son. I did one that was his entire t-shirt collection from elementary school through high school. And I took every single piece of those t-shirts that I could use and turned them into one ginormous quilt. And I did one for my husband that was music themed, and I've started some other ones also. They're kind of in progress. Some Scout ones, because we have a Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in the family, and I've got a 3-day like Think Pink kind of version of one for the Susan G. Komen 3-day, which Kristen and I have participated in a number of times, and some other things. So I call me crazy, but I love putting those things together just because they're more than just a regular quilt. They're like a scrapbook made into a quilt form, basically. Have either of you done anything like that? Anything remotely like that at all?
So I have done, okay. So I know I talked about on the last podcast that I don't sew. Mm-hmm. I have sewn in the past. I just haven't sewn in a while.
Right.
When I used to be a theater teacher, I used to put together costumes.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. But, and when I was a kid, I learned how to sew, and I made clothes and stuff like that. I just haven't, sat down and done anything like that. Now, quilting would be something that I might be interested in getting into, especially if I could make a weird core quilt.
Oh, gosh, you could. Totally.
Which, my coworker is actually making a quilt right now. He's one of the music teachers at the school, and he's in the process of learning how to make a quilt. So I've been watching his progress, and that seems interesting. So something similar that I made recently, though, is that at the beginning of the school year, they tasked us with making a, kind of curtain thing to throw over the classroom window in case of, a lockdown or something like that. So I didn't sew this, though. I made a curtain for my window out of fabric and hot glue.
Oh, hey, that works.
I burnt myself a lot doing it.
Oh, I bet. If there's a hot glue.
But that's the most recent thing that I've put together as far as sewing is concerned in fabric.
Well, I used to not.
I sewed with glue, yeah.
I did not consider myself a sewer myself. My mother tried to teach me how to sew. I did make a quilt when I was in high school, and I enjoyed that. I did. It was made out of blue jeans. You just cut up old blue jeans into small squares, sew them all together in a patchwork, and then everything that we did was completely all reclaimed fabrics, which I love because we're not, we're not wasting things. We're remaking them. So we would go to the thrift store or whatever and find old electric blankets and pull the electrics out of them, or just old blankets of any kind. And then old sheets would often be the backing for the quilt and stuff. And so we would do things like that. And these were not actually quilted. They were a quilt top with the liner and the backing, and then we did the old-fashioned way of tying them. Tie basting, I think is what they call it, where you run kind of a thicker thread through it in the like little spaced out things and bring it up and tie it in little knots. And that just kind of tie bastes all the pieces together, and those were a lot of fun. And I made one of those in high school, and I actually still have the topper for that. The backing rotted out because, like I said, it was a reclaimed sheet, and so I had to take that off and make it go away. But I am in the process of putting a new backing on that to reuse that top, because the top is blue jeans, and it's, blue jeans wear very well. And this was my favorite quilt in high school because it was so heavy, because not only did it have the batting in it, but those heavy denim was so warm. It was so warm,
but also cool at the same time.
Yeah. It gave you that sense of a weighted blanket, but not too hot. Yeah,
I love that blanket too.
I don't know. It's really awesome. And we even took like one of the butt pockets and put it up like at the top so that I'd have a place to put a Kleenex, that was kind of cool. But I loved that one. And so I did some sewing, just a little bit of sewing when I was younger, but I hated sewing. And it wasn't until I got older that I kind of was intrigued by quilting and some kind of home decor things. So I did one of Kristen's bedroom decor one year, and I made curtains for her. They were like rod pocket curtains, and then I did buttonhole curtains for something. I don't remember what it was. And then we made it was like a shoe rack that hangs over the inside of the closet door, and it's got all these pockets. And we didn't do it for shoes. We did it for her to put her toys and crafting supplies and school supplies and stuff. Yeah. And so it just hung on the back of on her closet door, and then it had buttonholes, I think was how it hooked on there. There was like an over the door hanger thing, and then it had buttonholes at the top that it hooked on, if I remember correctly. We may still have that somewhere. I don't know. But it was kind of cool. It was a challenge because I had to learn how to do pockets and all kinds of things. And that kind of led me to, I've done like I made my son a cape and Halloween decoration or costumes and stuff like that. But mostly, I did not sew for a long, long time until the last few years. And I wanted to make these t-shirt quilts. So I started doing that. And I also made some, what they call a jelly roll quilt. Some people call them a jelly roll race, but we weren't racing. We were just sewing the strips together. And then, you take the jelly roll of fabric, which is like is it a 2.5 inch?
Something like that.
Something like that.
It's like a long
strips of fabric, and you sew them together end to end, basically. And then you fold it in half and cut it. And then you sew those side by side to each other. And then you fold it in half and cut it. And I think that's how, yeah. And then you just keep folding it, sewing the first half to the second half. And then fold it and cut it and fold it and cut it and fold it and cut it and sew it. And you wind up with a quilt of all these little strips. And they're really easy and a lot of fun. And I'll point some videos there. If you want to start with the easy quilt, I think that one is
that's a really good
easy
one for a beginner because you don't have to cut any fabric out.
Yeah, you don't have to measure anything. You can just buy the jelly rolls and do it. But I've done that, and I've done some other kinds of like paper piecing and log cabins and things like that. And so I like doing those kind of things more than I like sewing clothes, because clothes they're really intricate. They often have curves, and they're less forgiving of mistakes. And I'm not the best, the straightest lines or whatever. And a quilt, it seems to me, from my perspective, a lot more forgiving than sewing clothing. And I know there are people who love to sew clothes, but for me, the quilts are just the easy, and it's just very soothing to sit. And we often go to little retreats or little day things where we sew together, and we'll all bring our sewing machine and whatever project we're working on, and we just sit and talk and sew. Or you can watch TV and sew. I love that about it. Like, whereas when I'm scrapbooking, I have to look down and pay attention a little more. When I'm sewing, even though I'm looking down at it, it's just kind of a mechanical motion. You have a little muscle memory there after a while, and you don't have to really pay as much attention to it, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's very soothing to me.
Yeah, I like doing the stitching part at the end.
The hand stitching. When you're
doing the border,
doing the binding and stuff. Yeah, even quilting. I do quilting on my own home machine with a walking foot, which is a special kind of foot that you can put on your sewing machine that allows it to pull that thicker fabric through. And I just do, because like I said, I can't sew a straight line, but I do often I'll either follow the channel, and do like somewhat straight lines. But one of the ones I love to do is that what they call organic wavy lines. And so you're just allowing the fabric to drift in big, long curves. And you just keep adding more lines of stitching and more lines of stitching until it looks the way you want it to look. And I love that because it's easy and it's fun. And so, there's basically my quilting theories right there in a nutshell.
Well, I got my first sewing experience was actually quilting for school.
Oh, yeah.
My geometry class had like a special project where you could draw or design either a stained glass, a quilt pattern, or some other thing. I can't remember what it was. And for extra credit, you could take it up a next level from just the drawing. So I designed the quilt pattern, and the whole point was that you had to use the 3 different types of triangles in the design. So I decided on a quilt pattern, and so we drew it out, or I drew it out, and then my mom showed me how to cut the fabric and sew it all together. And it wasn't like a full-size quilt. I decided to like carry it all the way through, and I made a small like baby lap quilt. It was probably like 2 feet by 2 feet or something like that. It was really
2 by
small.
3 or something. Yeah,
it was
pretty
square.
small.
It was square.
Oh, it was square.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was really small because it was just one block of a quilt pattern with a pretty wide border around it.
Yeah.
But that was it for me. I was like, oh, I really like sewing. But I got the taste of design, creating patterns myself, and I really enjoyed that. So I decided to take sewing in school, and I also designed and sewed a dress.
The whole pattern, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
From a blouse that my mom had. I really liked it, so I decided that it would make a nice dress. That was for a Girl
Scout merit badge.
It was a Girl Scout merit badge, and it was like my homecoming dress.
An IPP, I think is what they called them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, interest
project patch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then it was like, oh, I kind of like doing clothing too. And then my next project after that was someone commissioned me to make capes for them. So I learned how to use an actual pattern. And then I was like, wow, I kind of like sewing. I went and bought my own sewing machine, I believe when I was a sophomore in college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I used my extra student loan money to buy a sewing machine. And I really enjoyed like making like pillows. That was one of the things that I liked doing for people, was making pillows with my sewing machine. So when you asked if I'd ever done a t-shirt quilt, no, I never made a t-shirt quilt, but I would take t-shirts and make them into pillows.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know a lot of people who do that too. It's kind of the same theory. Make that,
So I enjoyed that, and then there was a long period where I didn't sew until Mom started going quilting, and I was like, well, I want to do that too. So I made my first real quilt, and that was completed. It took me a little longer to finish. I put a pause on it, but it was one of the projects that I wanted to finish for last year. It was one of my goals to finish 5 projects. So that Christmas quilt was one of them. And then Amber challenged us to make handmade gifts. And so one of them was a apron for my husband. He loves like branded things with like old school brands. And so I found this kit that was a Spam apron, so like the canned ham Spam, and it was like old fabric, kind of like, I don't know, it looked really like 70s or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, it's not old; it was new.
Yeah, it's new, but it's kind of like throwback.
Yeah, but it's like duck cloth or
it is. It's
canvas.
duck cloth.
It's duck cloth. Yeah.
And so that was my first time sewing with that, but that was a really easy to do pattern. And, like, the instructions were basically for, like, a brand new sewer. So I thought that was really cool, to make something really simple. And so that was my first handmade gift. And then I'm working on another gift right now that I can't mention on the podcast because, it's for, like, a later this year gift to be given out. So I don't want that person to know about the gift. So,
right.
But I'm really excited about that one because it's been like in the works for a while now.
Yes.
Cool. Very cool.
I have some of those.
I'll probably blog about that one later on or share it on the blog because to me it's kind of a big deal. I'm like really excited about it. So
yeah. I have a couple of those projects in the works too. I have not done any handmade gifts this year. I have made handmade cards that I've given away several times this year, and I have some handmade gifts that are in the works right now that I'm hoping to give away during the holidays at Christmas or whatever.
Are they sewing?
Yes, they are.
Oh, cool.
Yes. I
Awesome.
thought, I think I showed you one of them.
Probably.
Yes. And so I will be working on those, but they're just now getting into progress. So, yeah.
So would you ever consider sewing, Amber?
You know, it has actually been something that I have wanted to get back into. I actually have a hand sewing machine, just like for
mending clothes
and stuff like that. So, it was actually my grandma's that she gave me, but I used it a lot whenever I was a theater teacher, and I haven't used it the last couple of years, but it has been something that I've been thinking about on my mind because, like you, when I was younger, I took sewing classes at the local Boys and Girls Club where we would make outfits, and there are pictures of me wearing these outfits floating around on the internet that have been brought to my attention off and on over the years, like, hey, so-and-so posted this group picture, because we would, every summer, we would take a sewing class at the Boys and Girls Club, and we would make a different outfit every summer. This is when I was in elementary school. And then at the end of the summer, we would have a fashion show where we would walk the runway wearing your
clothes.
Yeah. The very first thing I ever made was a denim dress, and it was so badly sewn, but I wore it a lot.
You were so proud of it too, I bet.
Oh, yeah. I think I made that when I was in second grade, like first or second grade. This badly sewn denim dress. Just like a basic sack-looking dress, which is kind of popular again now. But
they are. I saw somebody wearing one of those the other day.
Yeah. So one of those. That was the first thing I ever made. The next thing was like this horrible vest and short suit. Oh my God! With this crazy floral pink weird 80s pattern that it was like a vest and shorts.
I had some of those when I was growing up. I did. They were in when I was in school.
Yeah, like that was my
I have
next,
pictures of me in mine.
That was my next thing that I sewed. And then the last thing that I did, I sewed, my friend Stacy and I both, we got the same pattern, same fabric, same everything, and we both sewed matching shorts.
Oh, cool.
So we were like twins on the runway that year.
Fun.
How fun.
Yeah, we sewed matching, and they were like totally 80s electric purple with neon, whatever. I forgot what telephones, I think, shorts that we rocked that summer. So I think that was like 5th or 6th grade was like the last year that we did it. And I'm sure I'm missing a year of where I did another dress or skirt or something like that. But you always remember your first. I remember my very first thing that I sewed. And just how, like, I always say I can't draw in a straight line. Well, I can guarantee you I can't sew in a straight line to save
That
my
is the
life.
hardest thing.
There's a
It is
saying
hard.
for that, though. It will quilt out in the end.
Yeah. In quilting.
Yeah.
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 So I have been thinking about, like, taking some sewing classes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been thinking more about taking different kinds of art classes, like from Michael's or somewhere like that. And sewing is on my list of, like, a new thing that I feel like I'm crafty and I know a little bit about a little bit about a little bit of everything, but I'm not really a master at anything.
Yeah.
I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none.
That's me.
So I'm not saying that I'm ever going to master sewing, but it's just something that I want to learn more
It's
about.
handy to know. It is handy to know.
Let me tell you, if there's an apocalypse, I would say being able to sew would be a really
That
good
would be
thing
a
to
really
know.
handy one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. You were talking about taking it at the
You
Boys and
think
Girls
so,
Club.
too?
Wow. My son, when he was like maybe second or third grade, probably, maybe, I don't know. He may have been a little older than that. We were walking into the Hobby Lobby one day, and there was a lady there who had a little booth set up for her children's sewing class. She also did adult sewing classes, but she was trying to promote her sewing classes. And my son was like, "What is that?" And he went over to look, and he was really intrigued by her children's sewing class. And I have always been the kind of parent that I don't care if it's a girly thing or a boy thing or whatever. That is irrelevant to me. And he was interested in sewing, so I signed him up for sewing classes, and he loved it. He took lessons from this lady for years. Into junior high, I'm pretty sure, well into junior high. And he made shorts, pajamas, a sweatsuit, a pillowcases,
Book bag.
a book bag, placemats and napkins for Kristen for a housewarming gift for her. He made matching vests out of like duck cloth vests for himself and his dad for Boy Scouts to sew their patches onto. He made an apron for his dad for Father's Day. I can't even count the number of things
Heating bags.
Oh, yes. And then one year for Christmas, he made bean bags and stuff too. That was one of the first things he made was a bean bag. And in learning how to make the bean bag, he learned how to make rice bags. We used knit cloth, and you make a little bag and you fill it with rice and sew it up, and you heat it in the microwave, and it's like a hot water bottle or a heating pad or whatever for sore muscles or to put on your neck or your whatever. And he made those as Christmas gifts for everybody one year, and that was an awesome thing. So he did that many years, and I thought that was a great skill to know. Now, does he sew still? No. But if you put a sewing machine in front of him, I bet it's kind of like riding a bike.
It really is.
It is,
I
because
didn't touch my sewing machine for like 10 years.
Oh, me either. But like 20 years.
Just a little refresher, and then I was zipping along.
And then it's like, oh yeah, that's how that works. You know, it really is. So I love sewing crafts, because that's a really great way to make, if you're going to, you know, if we want to go back to that handmade gifts things, you can make pillows or pillowcases. You can make blankets and quilts. You can make clothing. You can make placemats and napkins and cup holders. And I have right in front of me a little mug rug that one of my very best friends made me, to put my coffee mug on my desk. Table runners for your dining room table or whatever. And, and they can be as cottage core or as formal as you want. That's the thing about sewing crafts, is if you want to get really into, I have a friend who does drapery for a living, and that's what she does, is she sews formal draperies. So it's a really good skill to have. And if you can sew, you can make all kinds of things, going back to that handmade gifts. So I do love it.
No, I definitely am interested in the quilting. Now, I'm not really sure about T-shirt quilting, but I do have a box of my parents' T-shirts that would be a nice thing that I could do with it.
Yeah, that would be. And I tell you, they're so warm. Those T-shirt quilts are really heavy, like the denim ones, too. They're really warm.
I have one that my grandma made me. One, I guess it was like a college graduation or gift or whatever, or a high school graduation.
That's what they very often are.
But she had saved a bunch of my T-shirts from when I was a child. My mom had, and my grandma. And she did it like how you normally cut the T-shirts into a square. What my grandma did is she had a T-shirt pattern, and she cut the T-shirts to look like little mini versions of the T-shirts. And then she sewed them on the squares and made the quilt that way. And I still have that T-shirt quilt.
That's interesting.
I have it like bagged up, so my cats can't rip on it. But for years it hung in my grandma's house until recently, after my mom died. I took the quilt with me, and I had it dry cleaned, and so it's been in the dry cleaning bag ever since.
I have some quilt. My quilting is a long done thing in my family. Kristen's making a blinky face.
The Elvis quilt.
Yes. My great grandmother hand quilted I'm talking about making organic wavy lines on my sewing machine. She hand stitched her quilts, and so she made all these fantastic quilts for people. Everybody I was when I graduated high school, she had quit because she had a stroke. Right after that. And so she wasn't able to, but all of the grandkids up until that point had gotten a quilt from her with their alma mater on it. So it would have, like a applique version of their mascot and the name of the school in big arching letters over that. And then usually the year, that you graduated or the years you attended or whatever. I can't remember exactly, but they were always well loved by everybody in the family. And then she did a lot of things that, like, she entered them in the county fair. I say county fair. It's not even just a county fair. It's the regional fair in Lubbock. It's the South Plains Fair out there. And she would win all kinds of ribbons on them because they were just gorgeous. One of my favorites, and I was just dying to get a hold of this when she died. My mother got this quilt. We call it the Elvis quilt. So my mother wanted it because she loved Elvis. And my great grandmother loved Elvis. That's why she made this quilt. But she also made quilts like some of my cousins were Marines, and so she made like an Iwo Jima, the raising of the flag on Iwo Jima applique on somebody's, and she also did the moon landing in a like a little, I don't know what it's applique, like little figures. Yeah, it's not just a silhouette though. It was like little
painting with fabric.
Basically, yeah. And so she did all these. So this Elvis one, my mother wound up with it, and then whenever she went into the nursing home, I took possession of it, and actually when we cleaned out her house, she didn't remember where it was, and we couldn't find it for a long time, and I was afraid that somebody else in the family had seen it and like claimed it for themselves or something, and I was like, oh my God, somebody got that thing. And but when I got to cleaning the house, I found where it was stashed in a very weird place, but so I brought it home and had it cleaned, and it's almost life-size Elvis, almost life-size. I think it's like a queen size or a full-size bed quilt. And it's on like a maroonish red or a crimson colored background. And it's Vegas Elvis in the white, sparkly, not fat yet, Elvis. And it's got, I know, I'm sorry. It's not fat Elvis, but it's like when he first got to Vegas and he's in the white thing, and he's got the microphone with the scarf tied on the microphone, or whatever, I think, maybe, I don't remember. And he's got the big ring, and she used like different rhinestones, and it's got rhinestones and sparkles and studs and everything hand placed on this Elvis quilt. And then it was hand quilted, by hand stitching on top of that. And it's an amazing quilt, and I love it. And I don't even take it out of the package because it's just such a treasure. But it's pretty awesome. But
yeah. Like, that would look amazing over my couch. Laying over the back of my couch.
No, Elvis. Because it would snag, and it would get dog hair on it, and the dog's toenails would get on it, and people would spill stuff on it, and that's why it stays in the closet. And I pull it out, and I show it to people, and I go, look at this quilt that my great grandmother made. It was so cool. And won blue ribbons at the fair and stuff, and it was just amazing. And I love it. So, I sometimes those sewed gifts can be like good treasures that you keep, like the t-shirt quilts or something. And then sometimes they're just functional, like the placemats or the
protective curtain in your classroom.
But I encourage those sewing arts, and like Kristen says, if we have the apocalypse, that's a good skill to have. So because where else are you going to get your clothes?
Right.
How are you going to sew your tent when there ain't no houses left?
Mm-hmm.
No, hopefully it never comes to that. But anyway, so next week, Amber is our hostess, and we have a special recording from a special location.
So yes, we're taking a Modern Musings road trip.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and we're going down to southwest Texas.
Yeah.
Going to the desert area. We're going to go to Marfa, and we're going to check out the Marfa lights and all of the art installations down there.
Prada
we're going to go to
Prada
Marfa. We're going to go to Big Bend. We're going to go to Balmorhea. We're just going to go on a crazy road trip. We're going to stay in a haunted hotel.
We're going to sleep in a teepee.
And, we're going to sleep in a couple of different kinds of teepees, right?
A teepee and a dome, a sky dome. Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to be podcasting on location, and our next podcast is going to be about spirit animals.
Oh, that's going to be exciting.
We're going to be
from the teepee.
Yeah, from the teepee, out in the middle of nowhere.
It is. You're
spirit animals.
Yes.
So tune in to that. It will be exciting.
That's going to be fun.
It's going to be our first time that we've ever road tripped and podcast before.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I am excited.
Yeah.
So, and on that light, we're going to thank Cake Mix Studios for equipment, including some of the equipment that we will be taking with us on that road trip to do those recordings. And Creative Audio Tech for our wonderful soundtrack music that we use. You'll see it often on the videos and the podcasts and different things. Those were all created by Creative Audio Tech. And if you've enjoyed our podcast, please like us, give us a thumbs up, give us a rating, leave us some comments. Go over to modernmusings.net, read the blogs, because if you're not reading the blogs, you're only getting a part of the story. And like I said, I'm going to put those quilting tips over there. In fact, they're already there by now. So go check that out. Give us some comments, give us some likes. And we also have our Facebook group that is for you. That we created that so that you can chat with each other and with us over on that. And we will have some things going on there. Maybe a poll or something, or I don't know. We do all kinds of things over there. So get over there and check it out. And that's it for this week. We'll be back next week from Marfa. And you have a great rest of your week. Bye.